Hello everybody, it's Carol Garrison and it's time for Make It Monday. Today is Monday, July 7th. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. As I said, my name's Carol Garrison and I am a card maker from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. Been making cards for many years, many different varieties, but most recently and for the longest period of time, it has been utilizing rubber stamps, pretty papers, ribbons, and cardstock. Today, I am not affiliated with any company. I am simply, I guess, sharing my goal of spreading joy one card at a time by doing these videos every week. I want to be able to show people how to make cards, perhaps find that creative piece inside of them that they didn't know they had, and also encourage people to create cards and send them to friends, to somebody lucky. Donate them if you can somewhere, but simply spread that joy one card at a time. Today's card was inspired by Julie Baca. I found a video on YouTube, and it's actually a very simple layout that you can dress up, dress down, do whatever you want. I followed her measurements, but I've added my own little touch to it, and that's something I encourage everybody to do as well when they're making cards. We can get great ideas and be inspired by other people, but always add your own touch, and sometimes that might just be as simple as adding a piece of bling or changing the colors that you're using, but give it a try. So I'm going to jump right in with my card, and I will start by giving you all measurements so that you've got that. You need a base cardstock piece that measures 5.5 by 8.5, and you'll score it at 4 1/4. And then I added another layer. This is strictly optional, but it is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And I did this because my card style is such, I don't care to have just blank smooth finishes on my cards. I like to have a little pop with that fancy paper. You also will need another piece of cardstock that measures 3 by 4. Now when I show you the sample that I made, you'll see that this could be cardstock. You could also use designer paper. It can go either way. Then you will also need another piece of paper, and again, this can be cardstock or designer series paper. In my case, I'm using designer series paper on this one, or pattern paper. And this particular piece measures 2 3/8 by 4 3/8. And I'm following that up with a piece of just white cardstock, and this is going to measure 2 1/4 by 4 1/4. This is going to be your focal point. So if you decide that you want to use designer series paper, you're going to see in my sample card, that's exactly what I did. So you can make this any way, finish it up to look any way that you want that card to look. I also have pre-stamped my sentiment, and I've just cut it into a rectangle with a layered piece of cardstock underneath it, kind of sticking monotone in the base part of the card, but I am going to use some markers and pop it up with a little bright pink in there with the stamp that I'm using. So again, those are the pieces we'll need. I'm also going to bring in some bling. Embellishments are totally up to you what you do. One of my big things right now is going through my stash and trying to use that stash, and I actually found some rhinestones that I'd used an alcohol-based marker on to color, so it actually matches my cardstock there. This is the card that we're going to make today. Apologize for not showing that to you first. Again, I'm going to encourage you to be creative in your thinking on how you lay this card out. All of the designs I saw had it running this way, and I opted to rotate mine so that it ran horizontally. I'm going to make this next card go vertical just because I can. And you don't have to stack your paper up the way that I did. This is the example that I saw. But on this next card, I'm going to change it up just a teeny bit. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we're going to do is take our cardstock, and again, this is 5.5 by 8.5, and I'm going to fold it over where I scored along my 4 1/4 line. But one tip that I learned when watching Julie's video is start to burnish it from the center and out, and that kind of helps ensure that these lines or these sides fold out a little more evenly. I was actually surprised at how well that little tip worked, so I'm going to share that with you. And then I've just taken this piece and I made it, like I said, just 1/8 of an inch smaller than my card, and that's because I want it to basically fill up the front. So again, the measurements on here are 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and I am just going to add adhesive. This is a fairly detailed folder that I used for embossing, and so I am going to add more adhesive than I might normally do, just because I want to make sure that that will really adhere to my paper. So I'm going to look, and when I'm laying layers down, I kind of try to keep opposite corners lined up, because if they're matching, then these two corners are matching. I'm going to admit this piece isn't quite as matchy as I would like it to be, but it's going to work. Looks like it's a little crooked. It's not going to work for me. Sorry, I'm going to try it again. I'd like to have the unevenness show more on the bottom than on the top of the card, because I think that's where eyes will be drawn to. So we're just going to put it back on and adhere it that way. All right, now I'm going to start assembling my layers, and I'm going to do my sentiment first, simply because that's the easiest. And here's where I'll go. Whoa. I'm thinking I didn't cut this quite as evenly as I thought. Nope, I guess I did. I just didn't have it lined up very well. All right, so there's my sentiment. I also found a piece of ribbon that will go real nice with that. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do it yet, but that's something I'm going to figure out. This is one of my most favorite ribbons that I've ever purchased. It came in like 5 different colors. I have all 5. Some of them I might have 2 rolls in. And if you're like me, you get all these pretty ribbons, but then you're afraid to use them. I am so guilty of that, and I don't want that to continue. One of the things I'm thinking about with the ribbon is actually, it's not long enough for me to do that. Actually, it is. I'm not going to tape down yet because I'm still kind of working on the layout of my card. But if I somehow did it like this, I'm not going to be able to tie a bow, which is what I originally thought I was going to do. But I can adhere it like that and then somehow put my layers over it so that it covers that. That might be kind of pretty. So one of the things I do when I design cards is, in my head, I have an idea, but I'm always keeping myself open to changing that idea based on what happens as I'm making the card. Because sometimes our cards start talking to us a little bit while we're making them and telling us what to do. I have a stamp here, and I'm actually going to use markers to color on this stamp. They're water-based markers, so they will wash right off. This stamp, just in case you're curious, comes from the Inked and Tiled stamp set from Stampin' Up. This is a retired stamp set, but you may be able to find it online somewhere. And I'm just going to use this big flower here. Alrighty. So coloring with markers is actually really easy. You don't want to use the alcohol-based markers because they do stain the stamps, but using these water-based markers works just fine. So I'm going to start by coloring the stem in. This is a great way if you've got stamps that you want to do multiple colors on but not do all the fussy stamping to get it. Markers can be a great way to accomplish that. And I find it easy to do something like this with it. It does require that you moisten the stamp once you're done coloring it, but that's a pretty easy thing to do. Add just a little bit of green to the base of the flower. All right, and then the next thing I'm going to do is take a pink color, and I am going to color in the flower. I've never done a lot of really detailed coloring of stamps like this, but I have used multiple colors, and I like it as a way to get two tones, primarily because I've tried inking stamps like this, and you know how you put the paper and try to block off certain parts of it and stuff. I just find that this is a quick and easy way to color and then add it to my paper in one stamp and not try lining up multiple pieces. There's a way that can be done, but I'm not doing it at this point. So the next thing that you need to do is just huff on this in order to get the ink re-moistened, and that way it will come off onto your paper. And the easiest way to do it is just to huff out of your mouth and blow on it. I know that sounds kind of funny, and I'm sure it comes across the video a little weird, but it works very well. And then you're just going to stamp right onto your paper wherever you want that image to fall. And there you go. Isn't that simple? Very simple and easy to do, and it gets you colors exactly that you want. All right, the next thing I need to do is I'm just going to set this aside so the ink can dry. And then we'll just, you know, maybe it's easier to see on here. I don't think it's so. It gets that shiny light. And we're going to start assembling more of the card. And this is the piece I need to play with a little bit, because you could put this here, this piece here. You could offset it. You know, you can put it in the center. I think on this card I am actually going to offset, and this ribbon, I really want to use this ribbon. I'm just not sure how I'm going to do it. It's thicker, so it's going to make a bigger bow than what I want, but I wonder if I could do something like that. Maybe that's what I'll do. And what's nice then is it will also kind of decorate the inside of my card. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm just going to run a piece of tape here, and I'm going to add this, and then I'm going to extend my adhesive up a little bit while covering some of that ribbon, and that will allow me to adhere it in a couple spots. Don't worry if these parts don't line up exactly, because your cardstock is going to cover it. All right, and then I'm going to add this layer. And again, I'm putting mine off to the side this time. It's the exact same measurements as my original card, but I'm just decorating it a little bit different. These two pieces are going to be layered, and so I'm going to assemble those before I put them onto my card base. I just think that's a little simpler way to do it. And so I'll stick it on here like so. And then we're going to add this piece to this layer. And because of the monotone, I personally think I do need to add that bling just to add a little sparkle to the card. So we're going to go like that. I've got my thinking of you sentiment here. I'm actually going to layer this down here. And I'm doing that because I don't want to lose a lot of that stem that goes with the flower. So we'll put that right there. And then I'm going to come back in with my bling. Maybe, oops. Put some up there. Put one here. I'll put one down here. And then because I've got 4 and I don't want just this one hanging out, I'm gonna put one right there. Now, if you do decide to color like silver rhinestones or something with your alcohol-based markers, give it enough time to really dry. It does take a little bit of time, and that way you're not getting the ink on your fingers. But there you go. It's a very simple layered card that you can make pop, whether you're using ink and stamps, designer series paper, or you could even do some die cuts that would help pop it out as well. So again, let me repeat my measurements on this card. It's going to be 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. And then it's going to be another piece of cardstock. It could be the same or a different color. In both my samples here, I've used the same color. That piece is going to be 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then I just ran it through an embossing folder. You can choose what folder you use. Just putting a card piece inside so I can write a note, but it's kind of nice to have that ribbon in there too. Dresses it up a little bit. This larger piece of cardstock here measures 3 by 4. The layer that I've got here behind my white piece measures 2 3/8 by 4 3/8, and then the white piece measures 2 1/4 by 4 1/4. And then you're going to cut your sentiment to whatever you want, embellish however you want, use ribbons, don't use ribbons, that type of thing. Inside layer is going to be 4 by 5 1/4. So there are 2 different samples, one with ink and stamps and one just simply relying on pattern paper to add that pop to our focal point. So go ahead, give this a give this card a try. And if you do, I'd love it if you'd post your pictures. It's kind of fun to see what other people do as well, because I think we all inspire each other with things that we would never have thought of. I find that often happens for me when I am looking at color combinations. I come up with colors that people come up with color combos that I would never use, but I get inspired by it and I give it a try and I think, why didn't I do that sooner? So again, simple layer card. Make it as elegant or as simple as you want to make it. Give it a try, and if you do, post your pictures. Looking forward to seeing everybody again next week for another Make It Monday. Take care. Bye-bye.